I'm in a clinical trial to prevent Alzheimer's disease, and right now I'm getting past due bill notifications that are making me panic. Not because I can't pay them, but because navigating the process is way more complicated than anyone warned me about. If you're considering joining a clinical trial, I want to share what I've learned about the financial side of dealing with side effects that nobody talked about beforehand. In a previous video, I introduced you to my sister, Megan.
Good morning, Megan.
Good morning.
How you feeling?
Fine.
We're both in the same Alzheimer's prevention trial. And after our recent lumbar punctures, we both developed a common side effect known as a spinal headache. Let me tell you, it's awful. Bad enough that we each separately ended up in the emergency room needing a procedure called a blood patch. And that's where things started to get complicated. Here's what I didn't understand going in. When you have an urgent side effect from a clinical trial and you need emergency care, you'll typically have to sign on the dotted line that you're responsible for payment for the medical service provided. When you check into the ER, they ask who's paying. And with the clinical trials, you put yourself down as the payer and then submit the bills to the research sponsor for them to pay them later. It sounds simple, right? But it hasn't been. The challenge with visiting the ER, at least in America, is that there are multiple bills from different entities: the hospital, the ER physician group, the radiologist, the lab. Each of them bills separately. So I've received, I think, 5 or 6 different individual bills on different days from different companies with different formats. And several of the bills came through without itemization, which is apparently required for the trial to reimburse them. So now I'm going back and forth trying to get itemized bills. Meanwhile, the bill amounts keep changing from one statement to the next because the hospitals start discounting services on the assumption that you were financially unable to pay the original total. And here's where it gets really messy. In some cases, the bills can be sent to your insurance automatically without your approval. So both Megan and I told the hospitals that we needed them to treat this as self-pay, but they already had our insurance on file because we've been in their networks before and provided insurance information previously. And the automatic billing of insurance is a problem for multiple reasons. I mean, first of all, now your insurance company has information about an ER visit that was actually a clinical trial side effect. So they might not understand the context. And secondly, and this is what worries me, if the insurance company knows that you're in a clinical trial, especially one related to Alzheimer's disease, that could potentially impact risk assessment when they adjust rates, Even just visiting the emergency room is a sign that I'm somebody who needs more care and that they might want to increase my rate because there's something going on with me. So I'm not saying that that'll definitely happen, but it is a genuine concern. And it's something that trial coordinators don't always discuss up front or prepare you for before you find yourself in an emergency situation. I am normally someone who is really buttoned up financially. I pay bills on time. I keep records organized. And right now I'm getting past due notices for bills that I've submitted that haven't been processed yet. Even though I know it's all going to get sorted out in the end, seeing these notifications makes me really anxious. And it's just one part of the clinical trial experience that I did not anticipate. So if you're considering a clinical trial, here's what I wish I would have known to ask about upfront. First of all, you want to ask, how are trial-related emergency expenses handled? How do they get billed and reimbursed? Get it in writing. Second, find out what documentation you'll need. For me, itemized bills were crucial, and make sure you know to request those immediately so you aren't met with delays on getting the bills paid. Third, ask whether there is a dedicated billing coordinator with your trial who can help you navigate the process. I've been working with my site coordinators, and at times they needed to reach out to get more information, and those cycles of question and answer definitely cause delays. Fourth, I think it's important to understand how your personal insurance might get involved, even in the case of trial-related care. This might not be a question that your research site can answer because you might be dealing with an ER or a local doctor, but you want to be really explicit with those service providers about whether the bills should go to insurance or not, and ensure that they understand why. And pay close attention to any bills as they come through so you can identify whether any of them have been sent to insurance that shouldn't have been. And I think it's also finally important to get clarity on the timeline. How long will reimbursement typically take? And what happens if you get collections notices while you're waiting? Clinical trials are crucial for advancing research, and I don't regret participating, but I do wish that the financial logistics of the process were more convenient and more clearly explained upfront. If you've participated in a clinical trial and dealt with billing complications, I'd love to hear about how you navigated it. And if you're part of organizing clinical trials or administering them, please take my experience as an example of how we could improve the system. And if you're considering joining a clinical trial, don't let this scare you off. Just know that this is something can happen and ask these questions before you sign the consent form. Thanks for watching.